ESPN Speed World. The NHRA, the world's largest motorsports sanctioning body, showcasing speeds in excess of 290 miles per hour and traveling the quarter mile in less than 5 seconds. Championship drag racing from the NHRA. The racers following the rainbow of NHRA Winston Championship drag racing in search of a share of the $1 million postseason bonus make 19 stops in a 9-month season. The most recent event was at the very first of the new super track, the Texas Motorplex at Ennis, Texas, just south of Dallas. Those expecting record times at the Chief Nationals were not disappointed, as Gary Ormsby took a major step forward to his first Winston Series title in Top Fuel, setting the record at 4.91 seconds, then beating Darrell Gwynn in the final in the quickest race in history. Ormsby winning at a 4.97.291, Gwynn losing with a quicker 4.94. The win gave Ormsby a cushion of more than 700 points over second-place Joe Amato and a lead of over 1,100 over Dick LaHaye. Don Prudhomme added yet another star to his crown as the winningest nitro driver of all time, a total of 40 NHRA victories in both Top Fuel and Funny Car. His win at Dallas came at the expense of Mark Oswald. In his winning effort, Prudhomme ran a 5.26 second elapsed time at over 269 miles an hour. His victory moved him into second place behind Bruce Larson. Kenny Bernstein was pushed to third. The low qualifier in Pro Stock waded through the 16-car field to win his second race of the year. Just like in the Top Fuel final, the winner, Warren Johnson, outdrove Larry Morgan at the starting line, running a 7:31 at 188 to beat a quicker 7:29 second elapsed time by Morgan. While Bruce Allen failed to advance past the first round in Dallas, he remains in mathematical contention to catch Bob Glidden for the series title, but it will be extremely difficult. Now at the next to the last race of the year, the scene shifts to the Phoenix, Arizona area and the 5th annual Castrol GTX Fall Nationals. Hello everybody, I'm Dave McClellan and welcome to Firebird Raceway. This overflow crowd basking in the Arizona sunshine has already been treated to a rare moment in NHRA Winston Championship drag racing. The clinching of a series title worth $150,000 in a postseason payout. For more on that, here's my good friend, Steve Evans.
Sure, it's hot. Sure, it's hard work. But there's nobody complaining on Bruce Larson's Funny Car crew as they prepared this car for round number 2 action. Because earlier today, did they celebrate. See, all Bruce had to do in round number 1 was defeat R.C. Sherman to clinch the season-long points title, and he did it. Well, it's official. The 4-year reign of Kenny Bernstein has come to an end at the hands of this man, the 1989 Winston Funny Car champion. Congratulations, Bruce.
It feels great, Steve. It feels fantastic. Yeah.
Just the suspense these last few races, wanting to get it over with.
Oh, you can't believe the pressure. You know, people say it was starting to look easy because we had a big lead. It gets worse every day.
At what point in the season did you think the dream was possible?
The first race.
Needless to say, when the crew arrived at the far end, it was bedlam. There's going to be another celebration, too, David, before this race is over. Bob Glidden survived round 1 of Pro Stock earlier today. All he has to do is compete in round number 2 to clinch his 10th Winston title. But in Top Fuel, the points war still rages. Gary Ormsby, who has led from the first race on and won a week ago at the Chief Nationals in Texas, well, he has survived round number 1, but so did Joe Amato, the defending Top Fuel champ, Dick LaHaye, third of the points, and Darrell Gwynn trying to close on LaHaye. They all won in round number 1, but so did Shirley Muldowney, and she may ultimately be the spoiler here. She's the one they're going to have to deal with. For the third time in 4 races, she's the number 1 qualifier, quickest car of the entire event. In fact, right now, let's go to the starting line, round 2 of Top Fuel, and see how the plot thickens.
And Steve, here is Shirley Muldowney, driving her Performance Automotive Wholesale Special. She's signaling to her crew. The crew signals back and says, all is well, let's go to the starting line. Into the burnout procedure, heating up those huge 17-inch wide tires by a simple procedure known as burning rubber.
Now, Shirley Muldowney does not have lane choice, Dave. That went to this man, Gene Snow, and look at that thundering burnout. He got lane choice because he was quicker than Shirley in earlier round number 1 action. Now, all of the cars so far today that have had lane choice have taken this near lane.
The elevation here at Firebird Raceway is much higher than it was at Dallas just a week ago, thereby the engines not producing quite as much power as they were just 7 days ago. Also, the temperature today is hot, and Gene Snow is going to have to contend with the worsening of conditions as the day goes on. Same with Shirley Muldowney. All of these nitro-burning cars run better when it's cool, but the temperature's warm for all of them.
Absolutely, and Shirley Muldowney has a new lease on her racing life. You saw the signal there from her crew chief and her husband, Ron Tobler. Take it to the starting line, baby. We can beat this man. Now, no one really knows how good that 4-lane is because nobody with Shirley's horsepower has tried it.
Even though she qualified number 1, she smoked the tires violently in the first round of competition. And she drives away from Gene Snow, a 5.15 second elapsed time at 279 miles an hour. Snow close behind at a 5.16.
Let's look at this again and watch Shirley Muldowney's car. Watch how hard it leaves the starting line, picking up the front wheels on that 300-inch car. That has been the only kind of Achilles heel with that race car, has been getting it off the starting line. They fixed it.
A great driving job by Shirley Muldowney. She had an advantage of some 0.03 of a second right off the starting line. As they neared the finish line, you can see in our replay just how long the lead was for Shirley as they crossed the finish line. It was difficult to see from our viewpoint, but a side panel blew off of Shirley's car, causing no problem. Steve?
Gene Snow over with a big hug for Shirley Muldowney. And Shirley, you know you're going fast when you start blowing your own doors off and body panels.
Really? Did we lose? Yeah, we sure did. What did we run, Steve?
You ran a 5.15 to his 16. Great drag race.
Well, evidently I did something right on the starting line for a change, so...
And you know, the speed for this elevation, 279, that's fast.
That is fast. We ran 82 qualifying. I don't know, I think they worked more on the bottom end than they did the top end, so maybe we can couple it up and run a little better than 15 next time. We're probably going to need it.
There's no better running top fuel racer in this country right now.
Thank you.
3 out of the last 4 races, Shirley Muldowney has been the number 1 qualifier, performance par excellence. The 1989 NHRA Castrol GTX Fall Nationals is being brought to you by Castrol, the motor oil engineered for today's smaller cars. And by Fram Bendix Autolite, all quality products of Allied Automotive. And later, Gary Ormsby, he'll be racing Darrell Gwynn. Way at Phoenix, Arizona in the Castrol GTX Fall Nationals in the pit area of Don Prudhomme. The crew preparing the Pontiac Funny Car. He'll be racing Mike Dunn in round number 2 funny car action coming up in just a few moments. Right now on the starting line, the TRW special of Joe Amato has come to life. Alongside of him, already completing her burnout, is Lori Johns.
Joe Amato, in that he is not paired up with the points competitors like Ormsby, LaHaye, Gwynn, has got to hope that somebody else takes them out, and that this young lady, in only her sophomore season in the 4 lanes, doesn't take him out on what can be a tricky racetrack. And her rather quick success in this sport, David, well, has raised a lot of eyebrows, including those of Shirley Muldowney.
Certainly has, as Shirley and Lori have engaged from time to time in a war of words. But on the racetrack, the dominant performance has been, over the last month at least, in Shirley Muldowney's camp. Tim Richards, the crew chief for Joe Amato, directing the traffic, placing that car exactly where he wants it. In front of Joe is his wife, Jerry, relaying the information from Tim Richards. Amato qualified third with a 5:07, while his competition, Lori Johns, wheeling the Jolly Rancher Candies car, had a 5:17, good for the number 7 spot.
The finest shot Lori Johns has ever taken at the quarter mile was at this year's U.S. Nationals in Indianapolis. She carded a 5.03 elapsed time, but that was under far better conditions, maybe 750 horsepower worth.
Lori Johns in the far lane, rolling considerably forward, but Joe Amato pulls away from her from the start, and Joe Amato advances, continuing to earn points. He runs 5:11 at 277 miles an hour. A nice run for Joe Amato. Very safe, very conservative.
I think that's all that Tim Richards wanted this car to do, was run just quick enough to beat Lori Johns and take no chance of smoking the tires. And you can see he is hooked up, and actually she is spinning the tires a little bit.
By the time they had reached the 8th mile, or halfway point down the racetrack, it was still a close race. Then, in the last few hundred feet, look how Amato pulled ahead to about a half a car length victory. That win now puts the pressure back on this man, sitting inside the unpainted magnesium body, the Castrol Special. That's Gary Ormsby. He must win to keep pace with Amato, who's with Steve Evans.
Joe Amato out of the car. He'll be happy with a 5:11.
Well, Steve, it's lane choice. You know, right now, the big thing what Ormsby does, we're still hoping he can get a gain at some points on this race.
Now, that will pair you up in the semis with Shirley Muldowney. Would you rather be facing one of the points contenders or rather have them duke it out on their own?
Well, sometimes it's better to try and control your own destiny. You know, so I would probably rather be running Ormsby right now, but being as I can't, I hope Darrell can get him right now. Ormsby's the main guy right now. I mean, he's got the lead. He's in first place. He's got to get out of there or else it's almost over.
All right, let's go back to the starting line and watch it.
Steve, it's incredible. Here we are, the 18th race of a 19-race season, and there are still 3, possibly 4 very strong contenders for the Winston Top Fuel title.
And one of them is Gerald Gwynn. Now, he'll be the first to admit it's an ultra-long shot for him to win the thing. But you figure if he can play second, that's worth $20,000 more than third place, so a lot of dollars at stake. And, you know, for these guys, this season might as well just be 2 races long here in Pomona in 2 weeks.
That's Jerry Gwynn, a former world champion at the wheel of a supercharged roadster many years ago. He has watched his son mature into a true superstar of drag racing, winner of 6 national event titles a year ago. Darrell Gwynn qualified second here at a 5:07, while Gary Ormsby, the leader at the moment, was only able to fit into the number 8 spot using a 5:13 to do so.
And any time you face that man, Gary Ormsby, as Gerald Gwynn did at the last race at the Chief Nationals, you know whatever trick is on that car that makes it leave first has done it again.
But look at Darrell Gwynn drive around him. The first 4-second elapsed time ever recorded at Firebird Raceway, a 4:99 at 278 miles an hour. And Gary Ormsby's got to be thinking, where did he come from?
Well, he certainly made no mistake off the starting line. Ormsby had the patented lead. Gwynn with a good lead, but certainly not matching wheels with Ormsby until right now.
At that halfway point, look at Gwynn come on. He just squirts past Gary Ormsby and continues to pull away as they near the finish line until he is more than a car length ahead with a 4:99. Let's go to the far end of the racetrack and Steve.
Gerald Gwynn at this moment has no bigger fan than Joe Amato. He did what you needed him to do.
Well, he did what we had to do, Steve. Now maybe we can have us a race here, you know. Try and win. We got to do good in this race and keep the point pressure on Gary.
Well, you better all watch out for him now.
Well, you know, Darrell's still in there, but maybe he'll be a nice guy and let us win.
All right, let's go to the man of the hour, Darrell Gwynn. No one expected at this racetrack, in this heat, a little bit of altitude, that anybody could run a 4-second elapsed time. They're wrong.
All right, heat of the day, I tell you. We saved the best for Gio. You know, we knew he was going to be tough all day, and 4:99 in Phoenix. I'm just happier than the devil.
I'll bet you are. And Gary Ormsby off to your left. And I think the look on his face pretty well says it all. It's a real horse race now. In just 2 weeks come the Winston Finals for him.
That's a bit of a payback, Steve. It was just a week ago that Gary Ormsby had beat Darrell Gwynn for the title in Dallas. That's Kenny Bernstein intently looking on as they warm up the engine in his funny car. He faces Jim White in round number 2 action at the Castrol Fall Nationals. remain in the second round of racing at the Castrol GTX Fall Nationals. This is Dick LaHaye coming into this race. He had about an 1,100-point difference between he and the leader, Ormsby. Let's go to Steve with the points leader.
Well, there's jubilation down here with Darrell Gwynn and his family and the honking horns, but there'll be a rather silent crew, I'm afraid, for Gary Ormsby. Gary?
Yeah, we really thought we'd run. I don't know what we ran, but I knew he ran awful good because he came around me pretty good down here.
Were you a little tentative maybe in that lane?
Maybe a little bit. We probably could have stepped it up a little bit, but we wanted to be on the safe side, and it just didn't work out this time.
I'll tell you what, the 19th race coming up is going to be as exciting as the first one, which you won.
Yeah, hopefully we can repeat and win this championship.
That final race coming up in just 2 weeks at Pomona, California. Ormsby, of course, referring to his big win to start the season at the Winter Nationals. That's Ursi Hill out in front of Eddie. You see the actions that Eddie takes to back his Super Shop Special up into its own tracks, trying to find the most traction available in that lane.
What a contrast between these two teams. There's the steadiness, the consistency of Dick LaHaye in the near lane. And there's a really kind of erratic performance of Eddie Hill this year. Upside down, over backwards at Pomona, then 4 second runs later on in the year. You just don't know what to expect. I really thought, David, that Dick LaHaye had a very good shot at this title. Of course, he still has a mathematical chance. But when he had the tire problem at Dallas a week ago, it cost him some of that mo, as they call it, momentum. And for Eddie Hill, he hasn't found mo all year long. Not a win to his credit. Dick LaHaye has been in the winner's circle 3 different times.
Hill throwing the switches and grabbing the brake handle. He qualified 8th. The Miller High Life Special of LaHaye, the number 4 qualifier, at a 5:08. Ursi looking on intently. You're riding with Eddie Hill. This car 258 inches long. He is staged. And Dick LaHaye pulls ahead and passes him at the finish line. LaHaye, the winner, 5:11, his elapsed time. That ride you took with Eddie Hill covered a quarter of a mile in 5.27 seconds at 258 miles an hour.
Eddie Hill was so intent here, he not only released the brake, he then pushed it forward to make sure that there was no drag at all, because he knew he needed everything he had, and as it turned out, it just wasn't enough.
Look at the smoke coming off the tires on Dick LaHaye's car. This in replay, you can see how loose he was in the middle of the course, but he recovered in time to win. That sets up the semifinal pairing where Dick LaHaye has got a challenge. He's got to race Darrell Gwynn, who's got the lane choice with that great 499. What a battle this will be. Joe Amato against Shirley Muldowney. Amato having the lane choice. Steve?
Well, David, I'm sure that Dick LaHaye was sitting in his race car watching the early parts of this second round with all of the fascination that we were. Just incredible top fuel racing, and you're a big part of it.
I certainly am. Boy, that 499 of Darrell's was plenty stout. And this run here that we just made, this thing really got loose out there and was all over the track. And I'm not even sure what it ran, to be truthful with you, Stephen.
It ran a 5:11, but that's a ways away from Gwynn's number.
Oh, it certainly is. We'll just have to see what happens.
You're going to have that same lane. You can bet on that.
Yeah, I'm sure I am. Thank you.
Okay.
Dick LaHaye heads back to the pits to get ready for the semifinals. We've got Pro Stock Racing coming up next at Firebird Raceway in Phoenix.
You know, David, here in the Firebird pits, there are huge crowds around Shirley Muldowney's car, huge crowds around Darrell Gwynn and Bob Glidden, and a huge crowd around the pink Cadillac. This car has absolutely nothing to do with our competition today, but I couldn't resist it. Could you? A 1959 Cadillac funny car, complete with wing, parachutes, wheelie bars. It weighs about 2,600 pounds. The aft section of the car, except for the trunk lid, is all steel, original Cadillac bodywork. The interior, as you can see, is as nice as any funny car. All the hand-formed aluminum, complete roll cage, all the safety equipment. And resting under the flip-top front end is about a 1,800 horsepower, 500 cubic inch supercharged alcohol-burning Rodak engine. John DePorter built this car here in the Phoenix area. It was just completed Tuesday night. Now, you won't find the pink Cadillac contesting Bruce Larson for next year's funny car title, but you probably will find it exhibition racing at your local NHRA drag strip. I'd buy a ticket to watch this baby smoke the tires.
I'll second that, Steve, and I'll tell you one thing, it gives a whole new meaning to the word pink. Here is round number 2 of Pro Stock Eliminator. This is the Castrol GTX Oldsmobile of Larry Morgan. His competition over in the far lane, a Chevrolet Beretta driven by Gary Herman. And this is one of Herman's most outstanding efforts thus far.
Oh, absolutely. Anytime you can get this far in NHRA Pro Stock competition, as close as it is, often just a few hundredths of a second will separate number 1 from number 16 in the qualifying.
Number 7 qualifier was Herman, while Morgan qualified 3rd. The difference between those two cars in qualifying, a 742 for Morgan, a 746 for Herman.
Nobody has to tell Gary Herman the challenge he's accepted here. He is racing the U.S. Nationals champion, Larry Morgan, and he leaves too soon.
Gary Herman had to take a chance. He tried against the Christmas tree to gain an advantage, but if you try too hard, sometimes you end up with the red light. Larry Morgan ended up with an elapsed time of 7.48 seconds at 185 miles an hour. Here's the Chevrolet of Bruce Allen, the Levi Garrett car. This is one of the stable of race cars out of the Rare and Morrison team, racing against the winner in Dallas, Warren Johnson, at the wheel of the AC Delco Oldsmobile. It was on that Texas Motorplex quarter mile that Bruce Allen had some problems. Earlier, Steve got the story.
Normally, when I visit the Rare and Morrison Pro Stock trailer, I get a great view of the spare car they always carry for the driver, Bruce Allen. Well, there's not much to see here today because the spare car has been pressed into duty. And no wonder after what happened 1 week ago, the Chief Nationals Texas Motorplex. It was round number 1. Bruce Allen in the far lane. Gary Brown in the near lane. Allen, the clear-cut winner by a car length. Suddenly, some parachute lines snapped, forcing the car to the left. A 45-degree impact with the unforgiving concrete wall, and one total Pro Stock automobile. Amazingly enough, no injuries to Bruce Allen. He's hale and hearty here in Phoenix. Still a few aches and pains, though.
Yeah, a little rough around the edges, but nothing serious, fortunately.
Tell us about the backup car. How good is it?
It's a good car. It's won 4 races for us this year. It's qualified number 1 3 times. It's a good car.
What's the essential difference between the two?
Oh, the other car was new, and it had a GTU ground effects package on it. Had the front spoiler pulled out, and it was just a little bit more refined version of this car.
We're talking a few hundredths, maybe better?
Yeah, at the most.
Here at Phoenix, the backup car qualified number 6 with a 745, while Johnson qualified 2nd at 7.40.
It used to be you could race Warren Johnson and just as a matter of fact say, well, I'll drill him on the lights. I'll leave first. You can't say that anymore. He's turned into a driving machine.
Certainly has, and that was evidenced by the virtue of his driving job winning the race a week ago at the Motorplex. Oldsmobile against Chevrolet and Warren Johnson. 7.45 seconds his elapsed time. Bruce Allen even went quicker at a 7:44. As we look again in instant replay, you'll get an opportunity to see just what Steve was talking about. The driving machine in the far lane is Warren Johnson. He picked up 0.04 of a second advantage at the starting line over a great driver, Bruce Allen. At the halfway point, it was Johnson with the lead. He continued to hold it. He had built up enough advantage at the starting line to offset the quicker time by Allen.
Meanwhile, in Joe Amato's pit, a new wing is going on that car, a larger wing for more downforce, and a new rear end. They're taking no chances. The one from round number 2 was clunking a bit up the return road. We'll be back.
Raceway near Phoenix, Arizona, and the Castrol GTX Fall Nationals. I'm Dave McClelland along with Steve Evans, and our next pair of Pro Stockers includes Bob Glidden. What a year it's been for Bob this 1989. It got off to a great start for Glidden, who's been known in recent years for not hitting his stride till mid-season. The Winter Nationals, however, proved that such would not be the case in 1989. Glidden fired an impressive shot, dominating the race and beating Frank Iaconio in the final. Bob ran a 7:29 in that final, low ET of the event. Down at the far end, the celebration continued with sons Rusty and Billy, grandson Brandon, and wife and crew chief Etta. At race number 2, the Super Nationals in Houston, it was more of the same. It seemed that the Glidden family had truly broken the early season jinx in national event win number 69 against Morris Johnson Jr. Bob established a new national record at 7.256 seconds. That still stands today.
I don't recall you having this good an early season, maybe ever.
It's been 4 or 5 years since we've had anything close to this, and never this good.
2 in a row. Congratulations.
Thanks a lot, Steve. Thanks.
After such a dominating performance, a question had to be asked, and Steve Evans asked it.
Have you ever even considered maybe you could go undefeated through an entire Winston Series season?
No, Steve, I wouldn't even consider that. That's totally impossible. You know, there are 35, 40 cars here in Pro Stock right now that are capable of winning races. No one's going to dominate to that point.
How prophetic Bob Glidden's words were, because later that day at the Gator Nationals in the semifinals, he came up against Darrell Alderman, who outdrove him on the line and won with a hole shot. Glidden's first defeat in 11 passes down the track.
This has got to be the greatest moment for Dodge fans and Dodge racers in the last 15, 20 years.
And Darrell Alderman, too, because that's the first time I've ever beat him.
Well, you know, he didn't really do anything special. I was just extremely late. You know, my driving was off all day today, and when you're racing people like Alderman and he's running as good as he is, you can't be that far off.
But there were milestones yet to come.
Did you ever think you'd get to the point where I would be saying to you, Bob, you could get win number 70 today?
Well, not years ago now. Maybe last week we thought that, Steve, but no, really that was not even a thought in any way.
However, at the Southern Nationals, in the final round against Bruce Allen, Bob Glidden, the winningest driver in NHRA history, won his 70th national event.
70 of them.
Hey, I'd take 70 more, Steve. I'm telling you. You know,
that'll scare the rest of the guys.
No, hey, you know, we've never had it so good. These are the good old days for us.
Well put.
Thank you.
The domination continued at the next race in the series, the Mid-South Nationals in Memphis, Tennessee. This time it was Warren Johnson feeling the sting. People were asking if there was anyone who could put up a consistent challenge to Bob Glidden. Well, Bruce Allen won the Cajun Nationals in Baton Rouge after Glidden went out in round 1. But here at the next race, the Spring Nationals in Columbus, Bob beat Joe Lapone for win number 5 in '89 and number 72 overall. Bruce Allen won the next 2 races, seeming to make a challenge to the points domination of Glidden. But the mile highs in Denver and the California Nationals in Sonoma were Glidden's all the way. For wins number 73 and 74, the points race seemed all the more out of sight. Then at the Keystone Nationals in Reading, Pennsylvania, event number 15 in the series, Bob Glidden reached another milestone, 75 national event wins, a record that will probably never be broken. Bob Glidden, a true champion.
Whoa, look at that. My goodness gracious. 75 diamonds, Steve.
Well, Bob will have to wait to the season in Winston Banquet to collect his $100,000 bonus, but it gives me great pleasure to see in the near lane for the 10th time the Pro Stock champion. Just appearing here, David, does it.
Bob Glidden's Motorcraft Ford Pro may be off just a little bit in performance. He was only able to qualify number 4 at a 742, but Kenny Delco qualified even slower. He was the number 8 car with a 747. This field incredibly close.
Now, some people will tell you that Glidden has fallen off a little bit because he's already won the title and he's experimenting for 1990. He denies it, but I don't doubt he's capable of doing that.
That is a Pontiac Grand Prix in the far lane. That's Paul Rebeski Contracting Special with Kenny Delco from Center Reach, New York at the wheel. The classic General Motors versus Ford battle here in round number 2 of Pro Stock. And Bob Glidden pulls away to take the win. His elapsed time, 7.40, finding an improvement over his qualifying time. His speed, 185 miles an hour.
They both ran 185. Let's see if in replay we can tell where the Glidden car is so strong. Where did he make up the advantage? Where did it happen? Middle of the racetrack?
The time for Delco was a 7:49. He had to fall back quickly once Glidden began to make his move. There at the halfway point, you can see Glidden is only a half a car length ahead. But at the finish line, 1,320 feet away from where they started, Glidden more than a car length. Steve?
Well, there he is, the Winston champ in Pro Stock for the 10th time.
Thank you, Steve. Thanks. We may be the Winston champ already, but I'll tell you, we've got a long way to go in this race.
It's kind of like Bruce Larson. You had a big points lead, but it seemingly has taken forever to get it official.
Well, you know, after the last race at Dallas, when Bruce had the crash and went out early, as far as I was concerned, it was done. But officially, I think it is now.
It is, absolutely.
Thank you.
The next two cars coming to life at the starting line and going through their burnouts. That's Joe Lapone Jr. in the Easy Wider Chevy Beretta. He is racing the Dodge of Darrell Alderman, and Alderman's Exide Edge car had low ET of the entire event thus far, a 738 in round number 1.
This car is running even stronger than the day it defeated Bob Glidden this year at Gainesville, Florida. Darrell Alderman is also picked up on his driving a bit, and he'll have to if he's going to match wheels on the starting line with Joe Lapone Jr. from Berwyn, Pennsylvania. He is just an ace on the lights and one of the great sportsmen in Pro Stock.
Lapone had a 744 in qualifying. That marked him for number 5. Number 1 was Alderman, so it was no surprise that the wedge-motored Dodge ran that 738. He had a 740 in qualifying. This is the quickest car on this racetrack at the moment. Pulls away from Joe Lapone. His elapsed time, 7.40, remaining remarkably consistent as the day changes at 183 miles an hour. Lapone trailing with a 746. That sets up now the final 4 in Pro Stock Eliminator. It will be Larry Morgan's Oldsmobile against Darrell Alderman's Dodge. Alderman having the lane choice. The other pair, the Ford of Glidden against the Oldsmobile of Warren Johnson. Glidden choosing the lanes in the semifinals. Round number 2, funny car racing, coming up next at the Castrol GTX Fall Nationals. Phoenix, Arizona, this is the 5th annual Castrol GTX Fall Nationals. We're set for round number 2 racing. In funny car eliminator, here's the Hawaiian Punch. This is Jim White. The car owned and tuned by Roland Leong, and a supercharger explosion on the burnout.
Oh, that flipped the car said, hello. The blower banged the body up. There does not appear to be a lot of structural damage. What an awful year this has been for Jim White. A big fire at Brainerd, Minnesota, a wall banger at the U.S. Nationals, and now an ear ringer here at Phoenix.
His competition, Kenny Bernstein, will get a break in round number 2. All he's got to do is keep it between the center line and the guardrail. White out of the car. Bernstein will advance into the semifinals. As we look again, Steve, any idea what may have happened?
The only thing that could have, an intake valve was open when a spark plug went off. I'll tell you what, if they flambe the Hawaiian car one more time, there won't be anything left of it. As I said, it's been an awful year for a wonderful driver. Well, actually, that was tempered a few weeks ago. They got that car finally into the 520s. And he was looking forward to racing Kenny Bernstein, but that is not to be. As you said, David Bernstein will have a bye run, and for Jim White, he's got to be shaking his head saying, I can't wait till 1990. It can't be any worse. Now, you'd think that Kenny Bernstein being unsuccessful in winning his 5th consecutive funny car title, that was his drink, would be a grumpy guy. Quite the opposite. Bernstein is laughing. So is his crew chief, Dale Armstrong. They are having a lot of fun in the few funny car races that remain for them. They are going to Top Fuel Dragsters next year. Nice to see a smile on Kenny's face, especially when he didn't succeed.
Stevie qualified 2nd at this event with a 547. In this last third of the season, he has run as quick as a 521. And the word out of the Budweiser King camp is that they're doing some experimenting of their own, trying some combinations that they might use for next year in Top Fuel. Jim White can do nothing but try to work out the kinks and look on as Bernstein heads down track on a single and right into the semifinals. Bernstein stays below the 550 mark. 5:49 his elapsed time. His speed 267 miles an hour. As he makes the turn off the track, they hook up the tow car to the Dodge Daytona of Roland Leong and his driver Jim White. A tough day for them. In the pits, Bob Glidden getting his Ford Probe ready for its race with Warren Johnson in the semifinals of Pro Stock. Look at the mouths, the hungry mouths, 8 of them, in fact, of the 2 4-barrel carburetors sitting atop the 500 cubic inch Ford engine. Steve?
Well, as we saw earlier today, at the end of the season, Kenny Bernstein will have to scrape the #1 off of this big red car and hand it over to Bruce Larson, but he's not going to go out without a fight, are you? 5:49.
No, you can't do that. But listen, let me say one thing for Bruce Larson and that team. They deserve it. They won it. The Winston Championship's theirs. They had a great season the whole year long. And believe me when I say from this team to them, they've done a superb job, and they should be proud of that.
The racetrack right now.
Well, it's marginal. As the hotter it's getting, it's a little more marginal. We did soften it today, Steve. Dale just felt it was a little too aggressive on the 42 run, the previous round. Took a little bit out of it, and that shows that's what it came up with. But there's 2 other cars up here running awful good, Prudhomme and McCulloch. They're in the 40s, so we may have to put it back in there.
Let's go watch them.
Okay.
We'll get to that in just a few moments. Both Prudhomme and McCulloch in separate pairs here in round #2 of funny car action. The largest crowd ever to attend a Castrol GTX Fall Nationals here at Firebird. Looking on as Tom Hoover and Scott Coletta backing up after their burnout.
If you always wondered what Kenny Bernstein was like without any pressure on him, you just saw it. The pressure now is on the 2 gentlemen we're about to see. That is Tom Hoover from Minnesota, the Showtime car, and Scott Coletta, the Coletta Flying Services entry. Neither of those drivers have been able to get out of the high 550s. They need more.
The 27-year-old Scott Coletta, winner at the Super Nationals down at Houston earlier this season, while the champion Auto Stores Pontiac Trans Am of Tom Hoover has not seen the winner's circle throughout 1989.
Oh, yeah, but he got so close at the Spring Nationals in Columbus, Ohio, and it's kept him on the trail.
And up in smoke goes Coletta. Across the finish line, Tom Hoover, consistent in the mid to upper 550s. This one a 5:59 at 257 miles an hour. He now advances into the semifinals. More funny car racing coming up next. Bruce Larson headed to the staging lanes for his semifinal race with Shirley Muldowney. Look at the ice up on top of that towel. They're trying to keep the fuel tank area on the dragster as cool as possible. Now let's take just a moment to look at Bruce Larson's year. Like Bob Glidden's 1989, Bruce Larson started out with a win at the Winter Nationals. But unlike Glidden, Larson faced the man who had won the Funny Car Championship 4 years in a row and meant to win it a 5th time, Kenny Bernstein. That final round win over the tire-smoking Bernstein gave Larson the early points lead, and he never relinquished it. Flying the team colors of Joe Amato, and with the engine tuning expertise of Amato crew chief Tim Richards and his own crew chief Maynard Yanks, Larson had put together a winning combination. Bruce Larson went to the finals at race #2, the Super Nationals, but Scott Coletta won. He went to the finals at race 3, the Gator Nationals, but Ed McCulloch won. But all the while, Larson racked up points. However, by the Spring Nationals, Bernstein had been racking up points himself. He was a heavily favored #2. Larson was dominant, though, beating Tom Hoover for win #2 for Bruce. It was also the first double victory for the Joe Amato team.
Yeah! Thanks a lot, guys.
It is bedlam down here, Dave, as you can see. The first doubleheader for the Amato back team.
Well, Kenny Bernstein won the next 2 races, the Grand Nationals and the Summer Nationals, and it pulled within 66 points of overtaking Larson. The smart money was backing Bernstein to take the lead at the Mile High Nationals, but Oswald beat Bernstein in the semis, and Bruce beat Mark Oswald, padding his lead.
With this win, Bruce Larson has sent a message, I believe, to Kenny Bernstein in that camp that they're nobody's doormat. Congratulations.
Thanks a lot, Steve.
You won it with a hole shot. You ran slower, but you got there first.
Is that right? Good. This car just flew today. It hooked up to a track that a lot of other cars couldn't hook up to. That was partly to the credit of Tim Richards and Maynard Yanks and my whole crew. So they kind of made it easy for me.
And once again, it was a double for the Amato team when Joe Amato beat Gary Ormsby. At the California Nationals, Larson went out in round 2, but he gained another 200 points on Bernstein, who went out in round 1, putting Larson almost 700 points ahead. So Bernstein was feeling the heat when the two met in the finals in the Seafair National. Bernstein had Larson outperformed by 300, but Larson pulled it out with a hole shot. At the Keystone Nationals, it was do or die for Kenny Bernstein. He had to make his charge. He had Larson off the starting line with a great lead, 0.08 of a second to be exact. But the tires let loose, and the victory, and for all intents and purposes, the Winston Championship was Larson.
And it's never easy on the head to lose, but that is a real bitter pill.
Well, it is. Losing's the toughest thing I do, and my team, Dale Armstrong and everybody. But you know, it's the way it happens today. Our 5th championship probably has gone out the window now, but you got to take your hat off to Bruce Larson and that crew over there. They've done a great job all year. They're after it. Prudhomme's flying right now too, but I think Larson has just proven that he's able to do it day in and day out.
What a race. The man you had to beat, and you beat him.
That's it. We can't depend on somebody else beating him. We have to do it ourselves once in a while, and we've done it every time this year when we confronted him.
Bruce Larson putting on a season-long performance as impressive as any we have ever seen for a long time. Bruce Larson, the 1989 NHRA Winston Funny Car Champion.
And now here at Phoenix, with the pressure off, the season in bonus is Bruce Larson maybe can have some fun racing his funny car like Kenny Bernstein is.
Particularly when he looks forward to the bonus, which is $150,000 cash, his share of the Winston Million. He's got to beat Ed McCulloch, though, to continue in competition here, and that is no easy task. In round number 1, McCulloch faced John Force at the wheel of the Castrol GTX Oldsmobile. Force was in the far lane, McCulloch in the near lane, and Force was carrying our onboard camera.
Oh, it's an impressive shot, David. You can literally feel the 4.5 Gs John Force was taking up the starting line, and you could also see out the right window how badly Ed McCulloch defeated him. Not a good race for John.
No, it was not. He only ran 581 compared to McCulloch's 546. In that first round for Larson, we saw him beat R.C. Sherman and win and clinch that Winston crown. Now, he is challenging the quickest funny car in drag racing.
Well, both these drivers will long remember '89. Bruce, of course, with the championship. Ed McCulloch for the record. The quickest funny car of them all is in the near lane, a 5.13 to his credit. In the words of Don Prudhomme, the most awesome run in funny car history.
McCulloch in the Miller High Life car, smoking the tires. So is Larson. Larson recovers quicker and crosses the finish line first. 5.63 seconds at 257 miles an hour. A beautiful driving job by both drivers. But Larson was the man that was able to backpedal, pull his foot back off the throttle just enough to let those tires regain traction.
Now, unlike the Top Fuel cars with the big wings for downforce, this track really offers a challenge to the funny car set.
They were even at half track. But as you can see, Larson was able to get the tires to stick again, and by a half a car length moved into the semifinals. The body coming down on Don Prudhomme's Pontiac. Previously, the quickest car in all of funny car racing. He had that distinction taken away from him a week ago in Dallas when McCulloch ran that great 513.
Now, Prudhomme has the lane choice, and guess what, drag racing fans? He has taken the near lane. Nobody else has done any different. In the far lane is what was once the fastest car in all of drag racing at over 280 miles an hour. That record has been taken away. And you can tell by the battle scars on this usually gorgeous car of Mike Dunn's that the last race at the Texas Motorplex was not a picnic for him.
This was a qualifying run that Dunn will remember for a long time. The engine exploding. A huge ball of flame rolling out from underneath the body that was blown off the chassis. Dunn was uninjured. The car was repaired, and in round number 1 here at Phoenix, he raced Mark Oswald, the #1 qualifier in Funny Car Eliminator. Oswald was in the near lane, Dunn in the far lane. This is the second week in a row that Oswald has had problems. It was in the finals. He smoked the tires against Prudhomme in Dallas, here against Dunn. In round number 1, mechanical problems set in. The #1 qualifier out of competition, advancing Mike Dunn into round number 2, where he races Don Prudhomme.
And the Snake hopes to make it 2 in a row. First Texas and maybe now Phoenix. Prudhomme has a lane choice. He is in the near side. On the opposite side is Mike Dunn, who's just glad to have the body glued on the car and a cool fire suit on.
The Skoal Bandit of Prudhomme qualified very well with a 5:51 in the number 5 spot. And he just drives away from Mike Dunn. His elapsed time quite quick at a 5:45, 269 miles an hour. That puts him into the semifinal round. The pairings for the final 4 in Funny Car Eliminator finds Prudhomme racing Tom Hoover, and Prudhomme will choose the lane. The other pair has the match between the incoming and outgoing Winston champ Kenny Bernstein against Bruce Larson, and Bernstein chooses the lane. Steve Emmons?
Even though Don Prudhomme loves those 5 teens on this day, and in this round, I think a 5:45 would make him happy.
Yeah, that's pretty decent considering the track conditions right now. It's a little hot here, and we just can't apply the power to it like we like to.
Can you feel the car spinning the tires at all down the racetrack?
Yeah, it does, especially, you know, the computer picks that up too. But, yeah, we're aware of that. It's just that we just can't apply much more to it, you know, to really hook it up.
It doesn't really smoke the tires. It just leaves black tracks.
It sure does, Steve. You know, in this heat here in Phoenix, I mean, I don't have to tell you, this 105-degree weather. It's just tough to go down through there. Sure is an Indy.
Maybe that's why next year they've moved this race to February.
Yeah, it's going to be a great, great show for the crowd. I think they'll really see some good ETs.
Okay, Don Prudhomme goes to the semis.
Semifinal racing. Next at the Castrol GTX Fall National. GTX Fall Nationals is the last event here in Phoenix in October. As Steve noted just a little bit earlier, the race is moving to February, the middle of February next season, right between the Winter Nationals and the Super Nationals, and will be known as the Arizona Nationals.
David, I said at the top of the show that the points earners, the guys battling for the crown, would have to deal with Shirley Muldowney. This is what I meant. Round 3, Joe Amato against Shirley. Ormsby already out. It's an excellent opportunity for Amato to pick up another 200 points and close that gap.
Joe is the master of his own destiny at this point, but Shirley has absolutely nothing to lose and everything to gain. Shirley rolling forward into the staging beam. Amato now set. What an upset. Shirley Muldowney outdrove Joe Amato at the starting line. Her elapsed time, 5.16 seconds. Her speed, 269 miles an hour. But as we look in replay, watch the pink car in the far lane. That Performance Automotive Wholesale Special moved off the starting line 7/100 of a second ahead of Joe Amato. And Joe ran a 5:14 trying to play catch-up, but it was not to be. Shirley continued on down the track until she reached the line that indicates the finish. She's the winner.
What a leave, lady. What a driving job.
I don't think ET was good, but I guess he was good enough.
Was indeed. You were 5:16, beat his 5:14. You had a lot in the bank when you left.
Yeah, I'll tell you, it was good on the low end. And for once I got this guy. He is so good on the leave. I was a little bit afraid. Well, a lot. Really afraid of him.
Good race, Shirley. Good race.
Oh, thank you.
While Amato offers congratulations, you know he's got to be disappointed being out of the points race this early here at Phoenix. In the far lane, Dick LaHaye has the opportunity now to earn points, as does Darrell Gwynn, the man we're looking over his dad's shoulder at. There are 2 racers that can only sit and watch. Gary Ormsby's one. The other is with Steve.
Joe, that's one of those races. If you could rerun it, you'd certainly take that opportunity.
Well, Steve, you know, that's how racing goes. You know, you try to be cautious, and I try to keep it so I got, you know, didn't get over-revved on the line and smoke the tires or do something wrong. And, you know, that's racing, you know.
You picked up a round on Gary Ormsby. This thing is going to go right to the wire.
Well, we had a chance to pick up more. You know, I feel bad. I let the team down in the way, because if I did my job a little better out there, we'd have a couple more points here. You know, the team did the job, gave me the power, and, you know, well, what are you going to do? That's racing. I've won my share with the leaves and like that, so I guess you live by the sword, you die by the sword.
In Pomona.
Thank you.
Indeed, they left some points on the table with that one.
Steve, they head to Pomona, and that is where it will be decided just 2 weeks from now. Dick LaHaye is still in the thick of things. He's staging in the far lane of the racetrack. Darrell Gwynn, remember, has the quickest elapsed time ever recorded on this course of 4:99.
But his car does not react to the touch off the starting line, like Ormsby's and like Shirley Muldowney, who has obviously found something. If Darrell ever gets that, well, it'd be a world beater.
Darrell Gwynn, 5.03 seconds at 278 miles an hour. Dick LaHaye had a very slight advantage at the start. As we watch again, look at the far lane of the track. See how quickly that car responds to a touch of the throttle? That's LaHaye out on Gwynn. But then, the Coors Extra Gold car started its march to the finish line, and by the time they got there, Darrell Gwynn had pulled out a narrow victory over Dick LaHaye. This win gives Gwynn the choice of lanes in the final round when he has to confront Shirley Muldowney for the Castrol GTX Fall Nationals title. Back in the pit area, it is Bruce Larson's car undergoing the preparation for the semifinal round of racing. He's matched against the outgoing Winston champ, the four-time Kingpin Kenny Bernstein.
Puts on a national event. They're not dealing with a few dozen race cars, but hundreds, maybe even 1,000 at the U.S. Nationals. It's a logistic Mount Everest, and nobody knows more about the complexities than this man, Steve Gibbs. He's NHRA's Vice President of Competition. I don't know how you do it.
It takes a lot of equipment, a lot of good dedicated personnel, a lot of systems, procedures, and with this 19-race series, it's really become a real challenge to our people.
In so many different areas of responsibility.
You know, between the timing and scoring up here in the tower to make sure it's all done accurately, and the staging people to get the right people to race, the emergency crews whose work never ends, pit control that goes on and on and on. Really hundreds of people just on the racetrack itself.
And the tech people keeping everybody straight, fuel checks, scales.
That's a major operation also. And it doesn't stop there. It goes into the housing of these people and the logistics of getting them fed and getting to and from the races. It's a major production. We do it 19 times a year.
And my personal heroes, I think, the guys that work that starting line, walking around on that tacky rubber in the hot sun, the noise, the heat.
Oh, you can't believe it until you actually go out there and experience it. And those guys do it week in, week out.
And there's so many areas we haven't even touched on.
You get into the parking of the vehicle, the cars, the ticket takers, the concession workers. It just goes on and on. It's a monumental task.
And nobody does it better than NHRA.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
You know, you too can share the pride of the National Hot Rod Association by becoming a member. And when you do, you'll receive National Dragster every week. Let's not forget the staff that handles all the editorial and photographic assignments here, and many other benefits. And if you do it right now, they'll throw in a copy of the multi-award-winning...
The longtime veterans that makes the presentation of these NHRA events so spectacular. Here is the semifinal round of Pro Stock Eliminator. Warren Johnson in the far lane, the Ford of Bob Glidden in the near lane.
They don't hate each other, as some people say. They just intensely dislike each other. Warren Johnson in the far lane driving as he never has in his entire career. Bob Glidden, who, as we said earlier, has clinched his 10th championship. This is a war here at Pro Stock.
Both cars now coming into the staging beams. You'll hear the RPM going up. And a great start for both drivers. Bob Glidden goes into the final round. His elapsed time, 7.41 seconds. His speed, 185 miles an hour. Warren Johnson ran just as fast, but was a little bit slower off the starting line. About 0.02 of a second advantage went to Glidden. The Oldsmobile of Johnson ran 7:42, trying to play catch-up, but it was not to be. By the time they had reached the halfway point, Glidden had just about as much of a lead as he was going to hold. Johnson could not come from behind to take away the semifinal win by Glidden. Thus, the Ford is in the finals.
And who will Bob Glidden race? Will it be this man at the wheel of the only competitive Dodge Pro Stock car in the last decade, Darrell Alderman, who has beat him before? Look back to the Gator Nationals. Or will it be the man over in the far lane that picked everybody's pocket, including Glidden at this year's U.S. Nationals, defeating Bob in that final round? Larry Morgan, Bob Pinella's Oldsmobile from California and Ohio, depending on the season.
500 cubic inch displacement, a minimum car weight of 2,350 pounds with the driver on board, racing gasoline. And a red light start for Morgan. He tried to pull off an advantage at the start and failed, and Alderman goes into the final round. His time, 7:43. He will not have the lane choice. That will go to Bob Glidden. It was a tremendous race for Alderman.
Larry Morgan is never early on the lights, let alone red lights. So that was calculated. He just didn't feel he had the power to match wheels with that Dodge.
The Dodge has got the low elapsed time of elimination, 7.38 seconds. That's the best time of the meet. He may need it when he races Glidden, as Bob has the lane choice in the Pro Stock Final. Let's go to Steve at the far end.
Headed for the final round against the big Ford Proba Bob Glidden will be Darrell Alderman. The Dodge is running fabulously.
Yeah, what did we run that time, Steve?
Well, not quite so fabulous. A 43 cost you lane choice, but you're right there.
Well, I'm just glad to be in the finals, and Larry was a real tough race. I guess he read it, right?
Indeed he did.
Okay. So I hope we have a good final.
I do too. Dodge versus Ford.
Always with a smile on his face, Darrell Alderman headed to the finals against Bob Glidden. Castrol GTX Fall Nationals at Firebird Raceway. This is a vengeance race supreme. This is the match between Kenny Bernstein. 4 times he has won the series title against the man that has won it for this year, Bruce Larson.
And you know that Bernstein, as many times as they have met this year, has not defeated that Oldsmobile from Pennsylvania. Don't worry about the body coming up. That's just part of their ritual as they disarm one of the magnetos and let it join the other one and trying to fire all that nitro. And this is a battle of pride. These guys like each other. The crews are friendly, but just a lot of, well, personal satisfaction on the line here, especially for Bernstein's guys. They just like to drill Larson one time.
What an incredible achievement for Larson, and that is indicative of why he is the new Winston champion. By virtue of his 5 consecutive victories throughout the season over Kenny Bernstein. And Larson just drives away from Bernstein. His elapsed time, 5.43 seconds. What an incredible comeback from the time in the semifinals when Larson only ran a 5.63. They found something between rounds as Larson now into the finals of the Castrol GTX Fall Nationals.
And will he race Don the Snake Prudhomme? Well, there's a good chance that could happen because the Snake is blind. Or will he race Tom Hoover? There is little chance of that unless Hoover has found a mechanical miracle.
But we saw a 0.2 of a second improvement by Larson between round number 2 and the semifinals. Should they be able to put the same combination together for Hoover, he could be very competitive. Let's go to the far end and Steve.
6 times this season, Bruce Larson and Kenny Bernstein have faced off side by side. This might have been the final time for the 2 Nitro Warriors, and you won all 6 of them.
We thought we were at a real disadvantage, but this left lane isn't so bad at Phoenix after all.
Apparently not a 5.43.
That's our best. We just thought we'd give it all the horsepower we could and see if we could drive through the bumps.
And you've been down on yourself about your driving. You don't need to be. You had the advantages there as well.
That's great. Good to hear. Thanks.
Okay, Bruce Larson, the champ continues to thunder. The new champ.
It's obvious, Steve, that Larson has lost none of his intensity to win as he continues to wade through this Fall Nationals field. Don Prudhomme has selected the lane nearest the camera, as has every quick car in eliminations today. Hoover's over in the bar lane.
Well, you can bet the Snake saw that 5.43, and he knows he's got to run like there's no tomorrow to get lane choice. He also knows if he doesn't get lane choice, it's no big deal because they're both good.
Hoover first to stage. Now Prudhomme is set. And Don Prudhomme goes into the final round. Tom Hoover kept it close for about half a racetrack. 5.48. He lost the lane choice. His speed, 266 miles an hour. But I got to imagine that Don Prudhomme is saying, what has happened here? Tom Hoover is still alongside of me as we got to the halfway point.
In that they left right together, David. Here's a perfect chance to see what 1/10 of a second looks like at the finish line. That was Prudhomme's winning margin. And here you'll see just what that amounts to. It didn't used to be this much, did it?
Nope, more than a car length daylight. As Don Prudhomme goes into the final round to race Bruce Larson for the funny car title at the Castrol GTX Fall Nationals, Larson having the lane choice. More action coming your way from Firebird Raceway with Darrell Gwynn for the Castrol GTX Fall Nationals Top Fuel title. Earlier, Steve took a look at one of the more unique cars in sportsman racing.
We've said before that in NHRA Sportsman Drag Racing, there's a class for just about every type of automobile. And here is further proof of that. In our stock automatic runs Al Provost's 1989 Oldsmobile Custom Classic Station Wagon. 4,600 pounds, 307 cubic inches of V8 engine. Now, Al has been racing station wagons since back in the 60s. He's won lots of national events. He likes that heavy weight. He likes the long wheelbase because it virtually eliminates any kind of wheel spin. The car always runs consistently right on the index, and he always gets very good lights. Now, Al has a shock absorber company for a sponsor. That's appropriate. He and his wife, Bev, are on the road in their motorhome having as good a time as anybody in drag racing. Well, with the possible exception of earlier in stock eliminations when Al suffered a rare first-round defeat. But right now, let's go to Dave McClellan and find out who did win stock eliminator and all of the other sportsman categories. David?
Steve, in the final of stock eliminator, it was Bill Koss in the near lane, Tom Rhoda in the far lane. This is handicap racing. The slower car, by virtue of the NHRA index, gets the physical head start. It was a red light for Rhoda. Koss in the near lane, the stock eliminator champion. In the other sportsman categories, Tom Conway won top alcohol dragster. Brad Anderson, alcohol funny car. Competition eliminator won by David Nickens. Super stock was Tim Cole. Super gas, Arthur Covert. The super comp winner here at the Fall Nationals, Larry Smith. Time now for the final round racing in Pro Stock Eliminator. Here is the reigning Winston champion. This is Bob Glidden. Based on the performance in the semifinal round, Glidden has the lane choice. He's taken the near lane. In the far lane is the quickest car in eliminations. This is the Dodge of Darrell Alderman. The Mopar people returning to drag racing with this Dodge, only the second season for this car. In years past, they used to dominate pro stock racing with the Hemi engine. But underneath the hood of that Dodge in the far lane is a 500 cubic inch wedge motor. Billy Glidden putting his dad Bob right where he wants him on the racetrack. The two drivers begin their period of concentration on that Christmas tree, trying to gain the advantage off the starting line. We have seen evidence several times today here at Phoenix, the way you can win a race by leaving the starting line just a little bit ahead of your competition. In the far lane, Alderman, Glidden, near lane. The track conditions improving here at Phoenix as the sun nears the western horizon. Glidden is ready. Now Alderman. Just by inches, Darrell Alderman wins his third national event title this season. His elapsed time, a 7:42. His speed over 186 miles an hour. Glidden actually ran quicker, but lost the race right there. The advantage was 0.02 of a second at the starting line for the car in the far lane, Darrell Alderman. Try as he might, Bob Glidden could not overcome that deficit. It looked even at this point, but as they neared the finish line, the additional 1 mile an hour speed that Alderman carried on this race made up the difference as he pulled ahead and just by inches took the victory.
Darrell Alderman has got a lot to smile about. Did you know you had won?
No, I didn't. That was a close race there. That was a very close race.
And it was a driver's race. Your 42 beat his 40.
Oh my goodness, that's something that hadn't been happening here lately.
You got some pride back on that one.
I'm excited. I'm telling you, that was really a tough one. I can't say enough about Dodge, Mopar Performance, Wayne County Speed Shop, Dave Kofel. Hey, we got another one.
We can't say enough about you. Great job.
Thank you.
For the third time this season, the smiling one, Darrell Alderman, is in the winner's circle. Of course, Bob Glidden has clinched the Winston title. Bruce Allen's in second, Larry Morgan third, Warren Johnson fourth, and Alderman now in fifth. Back at the starting line, the two finalists in Funny Car Eliminator, Bruce Larson and Don Prudhomme, awaiting word to start those engines that produce a 4,000 horsepower apiece. One of these men will be the champion of the Castrol GTX Fall Nationals. Way near Phoenix, Arizona, the engines are running. This is Bruce Larson, the new series champion. He, by virtue of his fine 5:43 in the semifinals, has the choice of lanes. He is picked, as all the other cars have all day long, the near lane. In the far side of the track, the Pontiac of Don Prudhomme. Larson has had quite a day on this racetrack. His 5:43 in the semifinals came as a bit of a shock, I think, to other racers, including Don Prudhomme, who the best he could run was in the upper 5:40 range. Earlier, Steve had a chance to talk to this man, the man that Bruce Larson credits with putting him in the championship.
We've paid our kudos to the driver, Bruce Larson, and now we do it for the crew chief, Maynard Yanks. A great season, a great victory.
Well, thank you very much, Steve. I want to compliment this crew. Don Militex, Randy Fisher, John Colston. Hey, they're full-time at this deal. They got their hearts in it. They'll work 12, 15 hours a day, 7 days a week, whatever it takes. We got some weekend help that comes to the racetrack. Ken, Joe, Dennis, Nate. They're all team members. They all work very hard at it. It's a team effort.
Maynard, when your old pals in the sprint car world see on TV like this or in the magazines and newspapers, what do they say to you?
Oh, Wolf, well, you know Wolfie.
Wolfgang, sure.
Yeah, he comes up, and if I see him back in Pennsylvania or something, he says, here comes my favorite TV star, you know, and he just jokes around, you know, but they're all happy for me that I'm doing good here, and I enjoy seeing them as much as I can.
Well, this sport racing is okay after all, isn't it?
It's not half bad.
Great job, great season.
Thanks again, Steve.
Before becoming crew chief on the car of Bruce Larson, Maynard Yanks was a very talented sprint car racer up and down the eastern seaboard. Now he's twisting wrenches for the man that has won the series title. Don Prudhomme knows what it's like to win those championships. He took home 4 in a row back in the mid-70s. Larson in the near lane. Prudhomme in the far lane. This is the final of the Castrol GTX Fall National. Prudhomme up in smoke. And Larson lays away yet another former champion. Bruce Larson's elapsed time, 5.49 seconds. His speed, 265 miles an hour. As we look in replay as the crew celebrate, Bruce Larson was a bit late off the starting line. Prudhomme had the advantage, but then he lost it in a billowing cloud of white smoke when those huge tires broke traction. First, they just spun a little bit, and then the smoke continued to boil off the back of the Pontiac. And Prudhomme did the only thing he could do, and that is shut the engine down and watch in despair as Bruce Larson streaked ahead and crossed the finish line, the winner.
Bruce Larson wins his 6th NHRA national event of the year on the same day that you clinched the Winston title. It's a dream.
What a perfect way to end the day.
The car got loose at mid-track.
Real loose, but I saw him fading back, so I figured he was loose at the same time.
So you saw him part of the way down the racetrack then?
Oh, yeah, he was there for about half the track, and then he started to fade.
You know, you won most of your races in the first half of the season. Does it mean something special to get one towards the last half to prove to people just why you're the champ?
Oh, yeah, we want to go down swinging.
Boy, and they are. Look out, Pomona.
Not only did he beat Kenny Bernstein in the semifinals, he took on the 4-time champ Don Prudhomme in the final round, put them both away. Prudhomme is second in the point standings. Bernstein very close in third. Then Mark Oswald and Ed McCulloch rounds out the top 5. And the celebration begins at the far end of Firebird Raceway as the entire crew engulfs a very happy Bruce Larson. While on the starting line, Shirley Muldowney begins the concentration it will take to pull out a victory in Top Fuel Eliminator. Phoenix, Arizona, there's only one pair left at the Castrol GTX Fall Nationals. The final race in Top Fuel Eliminator. Darrell Gwynn with the lane choice is in the lane nearest the camera. His opponent is Shirley Muldowney. Never before was a burnout quite so important to either driver. A flawless performance by Gwynn, capped by that incredible 499, the first and only 4-second run on this racetrack. It's a big wave from their fans as both drivers have an opportunity to look up into the grandstands and see this huge crowd that has waited for this moment, the final round of Top Fuel Eliminator. On performance, you got to kind of think Gwen's got an advantage, but Shirley certainly has proved herself more than competitive. And between rounds, Steve talked with her.
I don't know, Steve. It looks good for us. The car's running good, but I think Darrell may have the advantage in terms of car because his engine is so far back, and that will work well on this racetrack. I'm hoping he'll make a mistake, because if he blinks, I'm going to be right there.
Your guys are calling this car an animal they can't tame.
It really is. We haven't even started to work on the tune-up here because we've just tapped its potential. We just got to control it, really, and we need a real good racetrack for this car.
And a good light.
And a good light. That's right.
And the light is the responsibility of that lady, Shirley Muldowney. Her crew chief and husband, Ron Tobler, throwing the switch that activates the onboard recording device. Shirley and Gwen into the pre-stage beam. Now they roll forward. They're both ready. And Shirley Muldowney wins her first race since 1984. Since her comeback after the near-fatal accident in Montreal, Canada, back in 1984, Shirley Muldowney has won an NHRA national event title, and she did it on her driving skills. In the far lane, Shirley got a 0.04 of a second advantage over Darrell Gwynn. Her elapsed time on this run was 5.05 seconds at 275 miles an hour. In his effort to play catch-up, Darrell Gwynn ran 5.04 seconds at a faster speed, 278 miles an hour, but Shirley's the champ.
Shirley, it's been lonely in the winter circle without you.
Yeah, it has. We did it. I don't know.
And you did it on the starting line the way you love to do it.
They had the car for me on the starting line. It just, it made a good leave all day. It kind of faltered in the top end again, and I don't know why, and I was sure he was going to catch me, but he didn't. You've
been winning those bonus checks for $4 grand for low ET and low qualifier, and those were just teasers, though. When you can't win the race, it doesn't mean anything.
Well, no, I didn't see any of that money anyhow. My team got it because they earned it, but we finally did it for Keith Harvey at PAW. I want to thank him for keeping the faith. They really believed in us. Now, I'm going to go through all the commercials, but Chrysler division, Chrysler Dodge division, Mopar parts, $1 grand. God bless them. They thought enough of us. And my good friend Leo Mel at Goodyear. God bless him. Thank you.
I can't add much to that, David. The face says it all.
The emotion of the moment. The champion of the Fall Nationals. Shirley Muldowney with an acknowledgement from Darrell Gwynn, who remains in fourth in the point standings. Ormsby's got the lead, but look how slim it is over Joe Amato. LaHaye is third, and Eddie Hill is number 5 in the Winston standing. For Steve Evans, I'm Dave McClellan saying so long from Phoenix. The 1989 NHRA Castrol GTX Fall Nationals has been brought to you by Fram Bendix Autolite. All quality products of Allied Automotive.
Outstanding.
And by Firestone. Watch us. We're on the move.
That's okay.
And by Castrol GTX, the motor oil engineered for today's smaller cars. Coverage of the NHRA Fall Nationals has been a presentation of Diamond P Sports.